What's up, nuts? So, a lot of us nowadays take measuring stuff for granted. We're completely, blissfully unaware that the system set up as standard practices today actually did require a lot of very accurate, very elaborate work from our nerdy forefathers. Or you could just be using Imperial. Either way, there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes on something we consider so simple and so mundane. So today on this video, we're going to be taking a look at exactly that. I'm Sam from Unquestionably Sane, where we answer questions only asked by the unquestionably sane. Stay tuned. Now, measuring is defined as the act of comparing something to a standard, which is done to make out how much, how long, how heavy, or how hot something is. These standards are stuff like meters that we use to describe length, or maybe pounds that we use to describe weight. But that definition is pretty vague since it doesn't really give us a limitation on what these standards should be. And in the world of science, vagueness begets tomfoolery. Now, first off, since all of these units are based on standards, you would want that standard to be well defined. Well, I can't just be calling things 5 dudes tall because, well, who's the dude? Is the dude still growing or not? Because if they are, 5 dudes tall could mean different things at different times. That is the main problem at the core of measurements. It's pretty hard to find something that's well defined and also unchanging. Now, although that means that measurements actually require a lot of very tedious, very elaborate standards and practices, it does mean that a Samuel from Unquestionably Sane is a good unit of measurement. Now, hopefully, you understood that bit. The quote unquote dude unit that I just made up is pretty dumb because you can't really define it, plus, it could change. Now, logically speaking, that if even you could understand that, then surely, most people do as well. Yeah, if you haven't guessed it yet, I am of course talking about the Imperial system. Boy oh boy, do these units suck ass. Every single goddamn unit in the system feels as if it's just made up by looking at the surroundings, like whatever was lying around back then, or whatever felt like it was a good idea. Even so, their units of lengths are especially devoid of brain usage. Take, for example, the foot. It's based on, you guessed it, a foot. Need I elaborate? There's also the inch, which is a bit better defined, somewhat, you be the judge of it. It's the length of 3 Bali coins laid end to end. Now, this especially frustrates me because apparently it's used a lot in engineering. Well, I guess nothing says precision engineering more like 3 random cereal grains. But on the bright side, that unpacking actually makes sense now. Then there's the mile, which at first was defined as the distance covered after taking 1,000 double steps. Again, I could think of a couple of flaws in this definition. But luckily, I wasn't the only one. So, the Brits in medieval time, they were also fed up by the nonsensical definition of the mile. The big brains at the time, they gathered, right? They start to end the tomfoolery. So they stepped their foot down and declared a mile is 8 furlongs, which is of course defined as the length of a furrow in a field that a team of oxen could plow before needing a break.
Oh, yep.
Let's look at the metric system. Just before my brain cells get deteriorated to a point where I won't be able to even speak. Length here is measured in meters. A meter is defined as 1/10 million of the distance from the equator to the North Pole along the meridian through Paris. Now that is a proper unit of measurement, defined to the goddamn T. Absolutely no room for vagueness. The Earth's not gonna be changing its size anytime soon. And just so you thought that it can be more precise, nowadays a meter is defined as the distance light travels in a vacuum in 1 over 299,792,458 seconds to the T. But don't bust that nut yet. The meter got other stuff going for it. For example, symmetry. A meter is exactly 100 centimeters, which itself is exactly 100 millimeters. It's as if the metric system was made with the thought of other people using it. Need to convert from millimeters to kilometers? Man, it's like that decimal dum dum. Don't gotta change the numbers. Try converting inches to miles. I dare you. You need a conversion chart, major in colonial history, and a gracious amount of your own tears. Now, some of you, especially if you've been using these units, might find me a bit harsh, but you gotta understand what I'm coming from here, mate. In college, I gotta do a lot of conversions from beautifully symmetrical metric to abhorrent imperial, a lot. And you know, it's easy enough to convert length and mass, but the moment you try to use them for physics, all hell breaks loose. Take one of the most simple equations you can find in physics, right? Newton's second law. Force is equals to mass time acceleration. Now, in metric, force is described in newtons, and in imperial, it's pound force. So let's try to count them, right? In metric, it's pretty straightforward. If I have a kilogram of mass accelerating at 1 meter per second squared, I would know that the mass exerts a force of exactly 1 newton. Say that I instead have a pound of mass accelerating at 1 feet per second squared. Now, you would think that the mass exerts a force of exactly 1 pound force. But no, the imperial units are so messed up and ass backwards, Newton's law don't even work properly without adding a calibrating constant. And it ain't like Newton chose metric as the basis whenever he was arranging his laws. No, metric wasn't even a thing back then. It's just as if the entire universe itself works on metric. Take one more example. I insist, please, just so you understand what I'm coming from here. So, in engineering, energy is sometimes, if you're truly deranged, described in BTU or British Thermal Unit. And energy could be calculated based on the formula force times distance. So, if I have a mass that exerts 1 Newton of force over exactly 1 meter, then I would know with 100% certainty that the mass exerted exactly 1 joule of energy. Now, if, and I can't stress this enough, if I had just been ran over by a truck, right? Went through 6 months of coma, woke up only to fall down a flight of stairs. Then, in this totally battered and destroyed state of mind, would I start thinking in imperial? At which point, had I need to calculate the work done by 1 pound of mass exerting 1 pound of force over 1 foot by multiplying them, and then obtaining 1 pound force foot, and then finding out that that doesn't equal to 1 BTU, then I will spontaneously combust. So back in midterms, I had to do a lot of these type of conversions. And let me tell you, when you're working with formulas that look like this, with values that all go up to the fourth decimal place, because that's just how messed up the conversions are. That does something to a man, right? So in conclusion, I think that the albino dolphins in Zimbabwe, they should become the next pope.